my turn.
Now that Sonic the Blue Blur is back for another high-speed adventure in Sonic the Hedgehog 3, it's definitely time for another marvelous video. This time we see Sonic team up with his trusty friends, Knuckles and Tails, in order to take on their toughest challenge yet, the mysterious and incredibly powerful Shadow the Hedgehog. Now Shadow has one goal, and that is revenge, as he blames humanity and the Guardian Unit of Nations for the tragic loss of his closest friend, Maria Robotnik. Of course, Shadow isn't the only threat that Sonic and his friends have to deal with. There is also Dr. Gerald Robotnik, played by Jim Carrey, in a dual role alongside his iconic portrayal of Dr. Ivo Robotnik, packed with intense action from the triple troubled threat and heartfelt moment. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 surprises with an emotional punch, especially when it comes to its villain. While the story keeps its spotlight on Sonic and his friend, it digs deep into the emotional journeys of Shadow the Hedgehog and Dr. Ivo Robotnik. Sure, both characters are undeniably up to no good, but their motivations are far from one-dimensional. Even Gerald Robotnik, who could have easily been a flat cliché villain, is given emotional weight. His grand plan may be straightforward on the surface, but his ultimate goals tie into the film's core themes of grief, love, and growth, making his actions resonate on a deeper level. But does all of this tie up the story in a neat bow, or does it leave fans hanging with the promise of more? Without wasting another moment, let's find out how Sonic the Hedgehog 3 before figuring out what's next for the Blue Blur. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. What is the third Sonic sequel about? So, the film starts off the coast of Japan, where a top-secret gun prison facility is hacked, triggering a catastrophic chain of events. Now, this breach awakens Shadow the Hedgehog, who breaks free from his suspended animation and escapes into the world. Meanwhile, Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles are enjoying a much-needed party with their adoptive parents, Tom and Maddie Wachowski, who are celebrating the anniversary of Sonic's arrival on Earth. But their fun is cut short when Gun's director, Rockwell, shows up unannounced and informs the trio, which is now officially known as Team Sonic, that Shadow is wreaking havoc in Tokyo, and it is up to them to stop him before things spiral even further out of control. When Team Sonic first confronts Shadow, he proves unstoppable and easily overpowers Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles before vanishing into the night. Naturally frustrated and searching for answers, the team then goes over to meet with Gun Commander Walters, who dropped the bombshell that in 1974, Gun discovered Shadow in a meteorite and harnessed his powers for very risky experiments. But when the project went disastrously wrong, the lead scientist was arrested, and Shadow was placed in stasis in order to contain the threat. Before they can find out more about the issue at hand, Dr. Ivo Robotnik's drones launch a surprise attack, fatally wounding Commander Walters. In his final moments, Walters hands Sonic a mysterious digital keycard and warns him to protect it at all costs. Now unsure of who they can trust, Team Sonic decides to go rogue and track down Shadow on their own. But the mystery only deepens when Robotnik's loyal assistant, Agent Stone, informs them that although Robotnik is still alive, it wasn't him behind the drone attack. So, with no other clear leads, Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles reluctantly team up with Robotnik and follow the trail of drones to an abandoned gun base, hoping it holds the answer they were all looking for. Back at the gun base, Shadow reflects on his past, haunted by memories of his time with Maria, who is the granddaughter of the project's lead scientist and the only person he ever considered a friend. He then recalls the night they tried to escape the base, only for tragedy to strike when a gun agent accidentally triggered an explosion, killing Maria and leaving Shadow devastated. It was that moment which completely shattered his trust in humanity and set him on a path of vengeance. Although before Team Sonic could do anything at the base, Shadow ambushes them and captures them before they can even take a step. During the same time, Dr. Robotnik comes face to face with the mastermind behind Project Shadow, who is apparently his own grandfather, Gerald Robotnik, the once renowned, who has been secretly imprisoned for the past 50 years. But even after so many years, Gerald is far from finished with his plan and reveals that he needs 2 keycards to activate the Eclipse Cannon, which is a powerful orbital laser designed to target any location on Earth. Now, his plan is to use it to destroy Gun's headquarters, once and for all. And of course, after hearing the depth of the issue, Robotnik sides with his grandfather before betraying Sonic and his friends, without any hesitation. However, when Shadow takes this moment to seize the keycard from Team Sonic and prepares to finish them off in a last-ditch effort, they all escape using a ring portal, narrowly avoiding disaster. Following all the chaos, Team Sonic teams up with Tom and Maddie to try and steal the second keycard from Gun's headquarters in London, but the mission takes a dangerous turn when Shadow ambushes them, gravely injuring Tom and successfully getting his hands on the second keycard. With both keycards now in their possession, Gerald, Ivo, and Shadow activate the Eclipse Cannon, setting their destructive plan into motion. Meanwhile, Sonic is furious and heartbroken over Tom's injury, which causes his emotions to take over. He even felt betrayed by his friends, so Sonic simply abandons Tails and Knuckles and takes matters into his own hands with the determination to stop Shadow on his own. In a desperate move, Sonic then takes the Master Emerald and harnesses its power to transform into Super Sonic by unlocking the full potential of the 7 Chaos. Of course, it goes without saying that now the stakes are higher than ever as Sonic prepares for the ultimate showdown. Now as Super Sonic, he speeds towards the Eclipse Cannon and begins floating in space, ready to face off with Shadow. The two then engage in an intense battle, with Shadow also tapping into the power of the Chaos Emerald, making the fight even more fierce. But as the fight rages on, Sonic begins to realize that he has gone too far by allowing his anger and thirst for revenge to cloud his judgment. In a moment of clarity, Sonic then speaks to Shadow about the pain of losing Longclaw years ago and how their love for the people they have lost should outweigh their desire for vengeance. Touched by Sonic's words, Shadow finally starts to see the truth. He apologizes for his action, realizing that revenge will only lead to more pain. Ultimately, they manage to put their differences aside and agree to team up, determined to stop the Eclipse Cannon before it is too late. Meanwhile, Gerald reveals to Ivo that he intends to use the Eclipse Cannon to destroy the entire planet as revenge for Maria's death. Now Ivo has his very own ambition, where he prefers to conquer Earth rather than obliterate it. Eventually, the two clash in a heated fight, and just as things seem hopeless for Ivo, Tails and Knuckles arrive on the scene. Working together, they all manage to knock Gerald into an energy field, ultimately vaporizing him in the process. With Gerald now gone, Team Sonic, Shadow, and Robotnik join forces to redirect the Eclipse Cannon and save Earth from destruction. Of course, this did not come without consequences, as the cannon's blast sliced off a portion of the moon before the team managed to get it under control. Plus, the danger isn't over yet, as the core of the cannon begins to melt down. And so, in order to prevent a catastrophic explosion, Robotnik and Shadow make the ultimate sacrifice by working together to move the cannon out of Earth's range and giving their lives in the process. The film ends as back on Earth, Sonic makes amends with Tails and Knuckles, and Tom recovers from his injury. Later, in a mid-credit scene, we see that Sonic is confronted by an army of robotic versions of himself, only to be saved by a mysterious female pink hedgehog. Finally, in a post-credit scene, it is revealed that Shadow has somehow survived the destruction of the Eclipse Cannon, thus setting the stage for even more adventures ahead. Did Shadow the Hedgehog and Dr. Ivo Robotnik really die at the end? So, the ending of Sonic the Hedgehog 3 really packs more emotional weight than it first appeared, with both Shadow and Dr. Ivo Robotnik seemingly giving their lives to save the planet. Throughout much of the film, both characters are driven by the desire for revenge, following Gerald Robotnik's plan to get back at Gun for their actions 50 years ago, and that ultimately leads to the activation of the Eclipse Cannon, which is a massive space station capable of firing a laser that could destroy all life on Earth. However, in a surprising turn, both Shadow and Robotnik choose to protect the world instead of pursuing their own personal vendetta, even if it means they won't survive the cannon's explosion. While the post-credit scene hints at Shadow's survival, there is no indication that Robotnik could have made it out of the explosion that destroyed the Eclipse Cannon. In his final moments, Robotnik even records a message for Earth, apologizing to Agent Stone and calling him a friend. This moment sort of comes as a form of closure to his character arc, reinforcing the film's themes about the importance of the bonds we form. It also gives Robotnik a surprisingly heartfelt heroic send-off, which contrasts with his usual goofy villain persona. While Shadow's return in future installments is almost certain, this feels like a fitting, natural end for Robotnik's story. The truth behind Gerald Robotnik's plan and death in the film. As you guys already know, Gerald Robotnik, the grandfather of Dr. Ivo Robotnik, was the lead scientist who first began researching Shadow when he arrived on Earth 50 years before the events of the film. While the full extent of his plans at that time remains unclear, his grief and anger over the death of his granddaughter Maria drove him to spend the next 5 decades plotting his revenge. After providing Gun with the designs for the Eclipse Cannon, Gerald managed to escape their custody, but his ultimate goal is to destroy humanity as payback for Maria's death. With the Eclipse Cannon set to annihilate Earth and himself in the process. Gerald's intense anger at the world basically ties directly into the film's central theme of grief. While Sonic is able to move past his pain and Shadow ultimately follows suit, Gerald becomes consumed by his rage and the loss of Maria. This deep sorrow leads him to commit terrible acts, including trying to kill his own grandchild. As a result, when he is thrown into the chaos energy created by Shadow, his death feels less tragic than it might have been. Why did Ivo betray his grandfather? It is no news that Dr. Ivo Robotnik has been the main antagonist all throughout the Sonic the Hedgehog film. Before, and while he briefly teams up with Sonic in the latest one, Ivo quickly aligns himself with Gerald once he learns of their family connection. For the first time, we see the Sonic film dig into Ivo's character in order to show us that he is really just a sad guy. Beneath his flamboyant, evil personality, Ivo is just a lonely man who grew up without any friends or family. At one point, even Sonic feels a hint of sympathy for him, wondering what kind of person Ivo might have turned out to be if he had meaningful relationships. But Ivo's decision to betray Gerald comes from a mix of his character's core traits. While he's initially all in on taking over the world with the space laser, he hesitates at the thought of actually wiping out humanity. And when Gerald insults him, claiming his only real family died with Maria, Ivo's anger boils over. His betrayal of Gerald isn't just about revenge. We also see an unexpected nobility in his character. This moment of defiance ultimately helps to shift in the direction of the climax, showing that even Ivo is capable of doing the right thing when pushed too far. What really happened to Maria in Sonic the Hedgehog 3? So, Maria's death, which happened long before the events of Sonic the Hedgehog 3, is pretty much the catalyst behind both Gerald and Shadow's anger, thus setting the stage for the film's central conflict. Maria is mostly introduced through Shadow's flashbacks, where we see the deep bond they shared during his time under Gun's observation and experiment. However, when Gerald warns them that Gun plans to take Shadow away, they try to escape. Unfortunately, their escape is stopped by Gun soldiers at the end, and in the chaos of all, a stray shot hits a container of chaos energy, causing an explosion that ends up killing Maria. This is why Maria's death is a crucial emotional turning point in Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and it is the reason why both Gerald and Shadow seek nothing but revenge against the world. Although you should know that this event closely mirrors her fate in the original game, particularly in Sonic Adventure 2. In both versions, a Gun soldier shoots at Maria while she is trying to help Shadow escape captivity. However, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 sort of spices things up by introducing the explosion of chaos energy, while in the game, Maria is directly shot by the soldier. How does the post-credits scene set up for another Sonic the Hedgehog sequel? The Sonic the Hedgehog movies have a strong track record of directly setting up the next installment in the post-credit scene, and that is no different here. So the ending of Sonic the Hedgehog 3, along with its two post-credit scenes, inevitably teases what's next for the franchise. While Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles succeed in saving the world, the first post-credit scene reveals that someone has been building a horde of Metal Sonic, which will definitely become a dangerous threat to the planet. As one of Sonic's most iconic and menacing foes, Metal Sonic's return sets the stage for a major showdown in future film, promising an exciting direction for the series moving forward. Of course, any potential sequel is likely to bring more hedgehogs into the spotlight, which brings us to the second post-credit scene that confirms that Shadow survived the events of the film, opening the door for a possible spin-off. Meanwhile, the Metal Sonic storyline also clues us in with the introduction of Amy Rose, who is a key character from Sonic CD. In the games, Amy is a kind-hearted hedgehog with a big crush on Sonic, but in the movie, she appears to have much more agency and combat skill. I think this new take on Amy could be an important step toward bringing other hedgehog characters into the cinematic universe, and honestly, we are here for it. With that being said, what do you guys think about the new Sonic film? Was Shadow's character everything you thought it would be? Let us know about your thoughts and opinions in the comment box below. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.